I was in a completely separate part of the house. All I could do was hear. And listening to her passion for an hour, it was driving me crazy.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We always strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy and positive approach to non-monogamy.
However, everyone approaches this a little different, and at its core, our show is about hearing and learning from the different experiences and approaches people have. With that in mind, it's important to remember that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of our own.
It's also important to remember that we aren't doctors or therapists and that we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on this show.
One final thing that we need to let you know about is that this podcast will hopefully include some explicit language. So, if that kind of thing offends you, we suggest you just keep listening until it no longer does. However, if you're under the age of 18, you should probably stop listening or gather up your parents and listen as a family. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 44. We're Finn and Emma.
We are Finn and Emma. Real quick, we got some quick announcements, the quickest of the quick.
Okay.
First of all, this week's episode is...
Front Porch Swingers.
Who are they?
A really awesome couple.
And podcasters.
Yeah, they started a podcast about 3 months ago or so, and we actually have an interview coming up on their show too.
Yep, so
spoiler alert.
That will be out within a few weeks. Some quick notes on them. They are going to the AVN convention in Las Vegas. That's, I believe, like the porn and sex toy convention.
I believe, yes.
And they're having a meet and greet on Friday, January 25th. So we wanted to get this out in time. So if you are a listener who's going there or lives near there and wanted to meet them in person, you could do that. All of the full details are on our website, our new website. Hey,
yes,
our new website.
Normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
Well, same web address, new design.
Yes.
If you know what I'm saying. Anyway.
It's normalizingnonmonogamy.com, or if you're spelling challenged like us, you can go nnmpodcast.com.
Yeah, maybe say that faster.
nnmpodcast.com.
Right. Yeah, all the good details are in the show notes over there. Before we go into the interview, which we will again momentarily, we wanted to remind you that, as always, you can save $10 at stdcheck.com. Again, head over to the show notes, find the links. It'll take you there. You can set up your super easy, super fast, and super pain-free, other than the little blood giving, STD testing. It's our favorite way to do it, and it will be yours too, I reckon.
Yes.
That helps support the show, and we appreciate it if you do.
The other one we wanted to mention is Casti. It's an online dating service. We are on there. Lots of other sexy people are on there. If you want a free 6-month trial, use the link on our webpage as well. You can also find us on Twitter and Cassidy under the screen name NNM Podcast.
That's all for now.
Yeah.
Let's go to the interview with Brian and Brenna of Front Porch Swingers.
Woohoo! Let's go. So thank you, Front Porch Swingers. We're really excited to talk to you tonight. And we wanted to start, I guess, by having the both of you describe a little bit about who you are and maybe one or two things you like doing just in life outside of any non-monogamy, and then we'll kind of dive into that side of it as well.
You just assumed they're non-monogamous.
That's true, but their name of their podcast is Front Porch Swingers, so...
Yeah,
you are correct. You're non-monogamous.
We are non-monogamous, absolutely. Consensually non-monogamous, 100%.
Yeah, so about us. Well,
yeah. You go first.
Okay. About us.
About us, about you, about me.
Okay, so we are a pretty abnormal couple in a lot of ways. We talk about this quite a bit, but we do have a 20-year age gap, which alone, when people don't know that we're swingers, is kind of maybe a little bit jarring, especially considering that we live in a pretty conservative place. So our age gap is something that people notice kind of right away about us.
Very quickly. Yeah.
We also do practice non-monogamy. We obviously swing. We are a full swap and soft swap couple. and we also participate in BDSM to some extent.
Yeah.
So basically, we're just kind of, all around kinksters.
Which also kind of separates us from a lot of folks in both the BDSM world and the swinger lifestyle. You'd be surprised at how or at least I'm surprised at how they don't really cross over very much, particularly in the BDSM world. We actually stopped participating in a group that we often would participate in terms of meetups and that kind of thing, because we kind of were being slighted because we were swingers, and the BDSM world looks down on that to some degree, which sounds odd, but it's accurate.
Yeah. So we're just kind of a weird couple, but we like it that way. We also are not a married couple. We have several failed marriages between us, and at this point in our lives have decided that we are not going down that road again, and we're both 100% okay with that. But we wear rings, and we're very dedicated to each other, and we are each other's life partners. So
based on our experience and my experience, of course I've got more of it, we are as committed a couple, as loving a couple, as trusting a couple, as open a couple as any married couple I've ever known. Mm-hmm. So that piece of it just doesn't really factor in for us.
And how long have you guys been together? I don't know. Maybe I missed that.
Oddly enough, next month, December 27th, will be a year.
Wow.
Yeah, this is fairly new, although we have not spent a day apart since we met each other.
With the exception of traveling for work a couple of times in that year, we have literally not spent a day apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive. And congratulations on the 1 year anniversary. Yeah, I think
Thanks.
We'd like to circle back to a few things, but real quick, just to clarify, for anyone who doesn't know, you are Brenna and Brian. I think my lovely partner here forgot to mention that.
That's true. I did not mention the names. I apologize.
Quite all right.
We figured it'd come out eventually.
Yeah. And also, I wanted to say that I can kind of commiserate with you that when we walk into a room, everyone knows that Emma is 6 months older than me. It's pretty much the first thing they notice about us.
I'm pretty sure that's not the case, but maybe you just like to think that.
So 1 year into your relationship, and you guys are at sort of an advanced level of relationship status in my opinion, by having an open relationship. Did you guys start off right away being open?
No, not exactly.
It happened pretty quickly, though. I mean, the biggest thing that I can say about our relationship and how it transgressed very quickly is that, or transpired very quickly in terms of the swinging, is that we have the most open relationship ever in terms of our communication. Like, we will talk about anything. No topic is off limits. And it's been that way pretty much since day one, which has not been the case for either of us in past relationships. It's almost like we found a kindred spirit in the other person, and we just felt 100% comfortable laying it out on the table. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we were able to kind of enter into this world rather quickly. I think we were together for probably about 4 months when we started talking about it. And from the time that we started talking about swinging to actually swinging was like a few weeks.
Maybe 2 weeks, something like that.
We are very impatient people, apparently. But it was one of those things where it was like we talked about it and we were both so on the same page with everything, and everything lined up that there was no reason to not. And it's been the best thing ever for us.
And really what really happened as we went further in and deeper and deeper into conversation, and deeper into what we were both feeling, the more open we became with each other, and the more honest and open we became. It was almost like a purge. Like I couldn't wait to tell her something else. You know, it was almost like you were trying to figure out, is there something I left out? Did I not tell her something? Because it was just such a relief. Mm-hmm. You know, it was just a weight lifted.
And through that time, was there anything that either one of you divulged that was like that was met with any type of pushback from the other person, or has it been pretty much just welcoming open arms?
Nothing at all. There was no pushback. In fact, it was almost like one of us would say something or admit to a desire or fantasy or something we really wanted to experience, and the other one before we even finished the sentence was like, I'm in. So there was never a hesitation in anything.
Wow.
And to be clear, this was not something either of us had before in previous relationships. We constantly felt like we had to guard what it was we wanted. And as a result of that, we felt unfulfilled, which I'm sure a lot of people in relationships previous to being in this type of relationship can understand. It's finally finding that partner that you can just say whatever you want, and you know that it's not going to be met with, disgust or anger or jealousy or
no judgment at all. It's just, and that's, for me, that's really the greatest part of our relationship, is that I know that I can tell Brenna anything that, this is really what I'd like to see us, get involved in, or I'm really not comfortable with that. And there's just no judgment of any kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really comforting, I would imagine, to feel after being in relationships where you didn't have that.
100%. I'm a multi-time divorced guy. My relationships were unfulfilling on every imaginable level. And to find Brenna at this point in my life, I mean, nothing short of purely just a miracle. I mean, all the stars aligned for us to meet. The steps I took even to move where we live now, where I actually came, to this part of the country and where Brenna was already living. My getting here, I mean, there were so many pieces that had to be put in place for that to happen. I don't know that it could ever happen again. It's almost impossible.
How did the two of you meet?
Funny you ask.
Well, so we met on Craigslist.
Wow, that's awesome.
Which is no longer in existence, unfortunately. The now defunct
casual encounters
on Craigslist is no longer a thing, and we're really disappointed by that, because we think we're a success story.
Totally.
Brenna was just out of a relationship. She was drunk with a friend. Her and her girlfriend are sitting around. She's like, I'm just going to put an ad out on Craigslist because none of this other stuff is working for me, which is what she did. So she drunkenly posted a Craigslist ad.
Yeah. And it was funny because it was like I was just getting out of yet another kind of vanilla, unfulfilling relationship. And I was like, I cannot do this again. This is not going to cut it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I decided to put this Craigslist ad out there, and because it's anonymous, you can say, what you want. And so I put in there, the BDSM pieces, and that I was looking for somebody who would want to, explore with me and who was open-minded sexually.
Right.
And of course I got, 500 responses. But Brian's was the only one that was really eloquent and thoughtful and, really spoke to who he was as a person, and it just worked out perfectly.
She responded to me, and of course I had been in the town where we currently reside for about five days. Been here 5 days.
Wow.
And thought, well, let's just see what's out there. And hers was the first and only one I responded to. And as it turns out, it worked. So we've been together ever since. Virtually from the time we met, we have not spent a day apart, with the exception, as I said, of traveling for work.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I think that's a very coincidental set of circumstances. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, thanks. Well, once again, the stars had to align for us to meet even before I ever got to where we actually met. Right. It was just a lot of pieces, and then that was like the final piece. It was just something I certainly never expected. I don't think either of us ever expected.
Yeah.
No.
And so, what is the non-monogamous sort of structure that you guys have right now? What does that look like in a practical sense on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week or whatever the frequency is?
Right.
Yeah, it's evolved a lot. So when we started our swinging adventure, we started with single guys, actually, and that evolved into us with couples. Mm-hmm. And now we have even talked about the potential, actually probably it's going to happen, of having separate playmates. So separate rooms, someone potentially regularly for us to be with, and not necessarily date or go on dates with, but more, just see on a regular basis and kind of develop that connection and like a friendly connection that leads to sex, probably.
Right. For us, we've talked about this before on our podcast. We've talked about it with lifestyle folks that we know. For us, this is for the lifestyle. For us, is really an enhancement to our relationship, to what we've already got. Our intimacy and passion is far beyond anything that I've certainly ever experienced. And together, we are just combustible. And all this does for us is it just elevates that. It just takes it to another level. It's very difficult to explain, and I can only imagine trying to explain to folks in the vanilla world that by my watching the woman I love have sex with someone else, I want her that much more. I'm that much more attracted to her on such an intense level. It's almost without words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have no idea what that's like. So.
Yeah, I'm sure not.
I'm certain you don't.
But yeah, no, I think that's amazing, and it's awesome to see you guys so happy and enjoying it.
Yeah, what the listeners can't see is how excited and just the energy you two have together is incredible, and that's really fun to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you. We probably wear people out with it. We go out all the time. We live in a very cool place, so we're out a lot. And even when we go out, sometimes we're like, okay, we're going to go out, we're going to meet some people, we're going to flirt, we're going to have a good time. And inevitably, what ends up happening is we sit at a bar and we are just all over each other, and no one comes anywhere near us. So it's we're super close.
Have you ever flipped a vanilla? Or maybe for anyone. Yeah. Okay.
So you should explain that.
Yeah, so I guess my point there, for anyone who's vanilla and doesn't understand that, would be go out to a normal bar, a regular bar that's not for swingers, and bring home somebody who you just met there that wasn't actually part of the lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah. We talked to a couple on Cassidy that does that almost exclusively, and ever since we talked to them, I'm like, we have to figure out a way to do it.
And we very small town. They live in an even smaller town. So we don't have designated swinger clubs in our town, nor do they. And so that's their MO. That's what they do. So they'll go out to a bar and they'll turn folks. And so we're super intrigued. We've got to meet these people.
I am way too shy for that.
I'd love to job shadow them.
I know.
For sure.
Take some notes.
Fly on the wall. We got to see how that works. But that's how they do it.
So is this something that you guys do weekly, daily, hourly, monthly? What's the...
Hourly.
Well, if only we could. We're pretty active. I mean, we are, for example, this week, Brenna's already had a date this week. We've already met with someone this week. We have a party to go to Saturday. We have something else planned for the following week. We stay pretty consistent. I guess with us, it's kind of ebbs and flows. It's, we'll have 3 dates one week and we'll go maybe 2 weeks without, that kind of thing.
Well, I wouldn't say picky is the right word, but we're selective.
Yeah.
And we live in a place where there aren't a ton of options. So sometimes we have to get a little bit creative in meeting people, which does lead to, I'm not going to say dry spells because that's a horrible way to look at it, but quieter times in our play. So it just really depends.
Yeah. I mean, this week, this Saturday, we were going out of town about 2 hours away from where we live to another town to attend a swinger event. And that's the norm for us because the town we live in doesn't host them. It's a very conservative town. You just don't see it. So we go to the surrounding cities that are a drop larger than ours, and that's kind of where we get to meet some folks.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And oddly enough, we run into people in those towns who are from our town, who also don't like to play in our town because they don't want to be outed, you know?
Well, but now you guys can carpool together, save a little bit on gas.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Here I am trying to cheat my way out. Oh, man. Well, yeah, so I guess we talked a little bit about the frequency and what it looks like. So you guys mentioned you've played with other couples, and you've also played with single guys. I guess, how did that progression look? And was there any sort of hesitation? I know a lot of people like to start as couples and they don't really like to deviate from that. And it sounds like you guys moved pretty effortlessly out of that sort of.
We did.
Yeah, I mean, I think the single guy thing, finding a single guy who I was attracted to and who I would want to play with, it's at the time seemed easier for us than a couple. So that's kind of why that started there. Plus, Brian was super into it and loved the idea of it. But I mean, as soon as that happened, the first time after I was with a single guy and Brian watched, that's when it was like, okay, we need to do this. We need to find a couple. This is definitely right for us. And then we kind of had to start our research. And of course, you come to the swinger sites, Cassidy and SDC and all of these other places. And so we just got on them and, started being really friendly and social and networking with people, and things just kind of fell into place. And we were really lucky. Our first interaction ever with a couple was with the best couple ever, which we've heard horror stories of that first time. And we were so lucky in finding a really great couple that was not only, attractive and physically good for us, but also, was just incredibly thoughtful. Like they walked us through the entire process. They went really slow with us. So I guess probably because that interaction was so awesome, it once again just fueled, like, we need to continue this, and we just haven't looked back.
No. And it was actually it's a podcast. I think it's Jack and Diane is that podcast where we talk about that first encounter with a couple. They're just amazing people. They're still our friends, and just it was such a good, like Brenna said, such an amazing experience. We just were full steam ahead.
And so your first experience was with a single guy. You started there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. In fact, the first 3 experiences.
No, just the first 2.
First 2?
Yeah.
Okay. First 2 were with
just because there was 3 guys in the room doesn't mean it was the first 3 experiences.
Right. Yeah, just like exactly.
Separate experiences.
Yeah. They were absolutely separate, but there were
no orgies to kick it off.
No,
we're not that adventurous.
We're starting to talk about that. We actually we almost did attend one, just didn't work out. But yeah, we jumped right into the single guy thing. And for me, it was the first time that like Brenna said, that we got to experience that. She was with the single guy. I got to watch and listen from an adjacent room. When that experience was over and she and I got together physically, that the intimacy that night really lent itself to what it was that we were doing this for. Mm-hmm. It changed everything for us physically. Our sex life is, it's crazy how much sex we have anyway. But when once we've had an experience with either a single person or a couple, for days before and days after, we are insatiable with one another. And when we had that experience, it really just exploded.
Yeah, it really did.
And it just made sense for us. We knew that we had made the right decision.
Do you mind, Brian, talking a little bit about that mentality? Because, is that something you discovered when you got with Brenna, or was that something that you had ever thought about leading up to that? Because I think that's something that I understand, because it's something that we enjoy. But I think it's hard to explain to somebody that, like, you might almost be content if that's all you guys ever did moving forward. You would probably be
Absolutely.
like, I have fun with this enough. I enjoy the other stuff, but this would be enough, right? And so,
absolutely.
Do you mind trying to explain sort of how you discovered that, and if you if you had ever experienced anything like that leading up to this?
So to answer your question, no, I'd never experienced it before. What I knew that I've always wanted was a relationship that lent itself to that kind of openness and, frankly, the trust. You guys can speak to it. There is no higher level of trust than allowing your partner to be physical with someone else and then coming back together and sharing that experience. And, and not only is it okay, but it intensifies your relationship. After that first experience, we talk about it on our podcast. That next morning, we got up, of course, we had sex, we went to work. That day, all I could think about was what had happened the night before. And what was bothering me was how close I felt, how connected I felt to Brenna. And I thought, is this right? Should I be feeling this way? Mm-hmm. And while I'm preparing myself to send her a message, she actually messaged me. And she sent me a message that said, I can't tell you how close I feel to you today. So it was obvious that it had worked both ways. So instantly I knew I had made the right decision. And once I realized how much I loved her and how intimate or how hot our intimacy was, it's like you step away, right? You guys are together, you're physical together. You get to experience that, but you don't really get to see it, right? You don't get to see, you don't get to see each other really enjoying that moment because you're in that moment. And I know for me, watching Brenna and really listening to her, it's something we've just experienced very recently. I was in a completely separate part of the house. All I could do was hear. And listening to her passion for an hour, it was driving me crazy. Mm-hmm. It's such an electric connection. And so when you have that level of trust and that level of attraction to someone, you want to share that. I do. I mean, I want someone else to experience it, and I want to be able to hear it and watch it. And then I want to relive it later because that's what we do.
For days.
Yeah, for days. It'll fool us for days. It's like storing up nuts for the winter. We've got plenty to work on. So if we don't have another experience for the next 5 days, we're good.
So high bar to set.
I know.
So your first time was, and you mentioned this briefly, it was you were in a separate room, but you were watching and listening, and that was your very first experience.
Yeah, my intention was to listen and not so much to watch. I wasn't actually in the room. I was outside of the room in an adjacent room separated by the open door and a wall. But it was so intense, and I was so worked up over it that I slowly started moving my chair so I could see a little bit. And I kind of got to the side, to the crack of the door, and got to see a little bit. And then the more, of course, I saw and watched and heard, it was just so intense. But I was absolutely just outside the room.
And I was definitely putting on the show.
For sure she was.
Which was probably fun, right? I know it's been fun for me.
Oh, absolutely. It's a blast.
So how do you decide on your first experience to be outside the room? Because, I think that's sort of a stereotype breaking event, right? Most people would say, well, if we're going to do this, I need to be in the room. In fact, I want to be on the same bed and I need to be touching you. And but right. You said, hey, let me take a step back. How did you arrive at that?
Yeah, I wanted to feel all those senses. I know what it's like to be next to her. I know what it's like to touch her. I know what it's like to see her. I don't know what it's like to feel those senses and hear them and not actually physically experience them. I really wanted to build it up. I wanted to really work myself up and to see if that was really what I needed. And so being in the room would have been too easy for me. I don't like to do things the easy way. I got to make it hard on myself, literally. So I want to be outside the room and really experience it. It just enhanced it. It was such an intense feeling, like to just close my eyes and listen to the woman I love, just enjoying herself sexually. And it was just incredible. So being the further away I got, honestly, the hotter it got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As we have recently just found out.
No, that's awesome. I think we could relate to that. We had an experience where I was in Europe while she was here in the U.S.
Well, that wasn't even anywhere close to the same building.
Yeah, no, listen, I get it. We've talked about that as well. We've gotten now to the point where I am nowhere near the room. I am only within earshot. And as Brenna alluded to, we're looking, we want to find a playmate specifically for her right now, primarily a regular playmate. And that will turn into my not being there at all. I may be at work or something and, she'll have a play date during the day. That kind of thing. I mean, I can only imagine what that must have been like for you being that far away and not being able to get to her afterwards. It'll drive me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it was a few weeks till we saw each other again.
Yeah, that plus the time changes, right? So I was waking up and she was going to bed and we were just like passing each other on text message and it was fun.
So did it help with the build-up, though? I would imagine so.
It helped to fuel and I guess keep that connection and that spark while we were apart for 3 months, and so that was fun, just something fun to do and to share when we weren't together.
And then we got engaged.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
That's
awesome.
I think it was right after. Yeah.
You came to visit and we got engaged. So that's the best way to propose, really.
I suppose. Yeah. Yeah,
For
absolutely.
us swingers, yeah.
Yeah. Most folks don't get that at all.
No.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So what do you guys feel like you are hoping? Obviously, you're moving towards separate room kind of stuff or separate partners. What other types of things are on the horizon for you guys looking forward?
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of different things. We have entertained the idea of an orgy. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure we're going to get there because part of it for us is the emotional connection, and you're not going to find that at an orgy.
Not typically.
It may still be on the table. We're toying with it. I think the next big thing is probably going to be, we haven't done any of the, major like resort travel or anything together. So like an actual trip all around the lifestyle and just immersing ourselves in it for days is probably going to be the next obvious one for us.
Right.
But I don't think anything's completely off the table. Brian keeps mentioning me finding a play partner. Obviously, finding a play partner for him is more difficult, but eventually I would like to see that happen as well, just so that we have somebody that we can, that we can build some trust with and that we both, feel comfortable with that person going and leaving and being with them for several hours on a regular basis. So I think that will probably be where we end up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, nothing's off the table. We're wide open. We're we're open to all the new experiences.
Do you think you'll ever try having like relationships with more than each other, or just are you thinking more like fuck buddies type relationship?
We've talked about a potential relationship. There's two problems with that. One is that as we've alluded to multiple times now, we hate being away from each other. Right. So the idea of like Brian going on a date with another woman wouldn't make me jealous. It would make me sad to not be with him.
Right.
So if it was like a situation where we were both dating that person potentially, which is a possibility, but I don't foresee us having like separate, relationships.
We talked a lot about the potentiality of the polyamorous type component where there would be a woman, for example, Brenna is bisexual, where we would be dating the same person and that person might be part of both of our worlds. But the truth is, we would find that difficult, as she said, because we are so connected. I can't imagine spending any amount of time away from her that would take away from our relationship. So I don't know that makes a lot of sense for us. I know most people probably think that sounds strange. You don't want the emotional connection. You guys just want to get down to it and start fucking. That's exactly right. That's
not exactly right.
That's pretty much how this works. We want to get to know you. We want to like you. We have to want to have a drink with you and hang out with you before we fuck you. But we don't need to.
Friends with benefits is perfect for us.
Yeah, that's exactly what we.
Well, and I think Brenna alluded to that when she said that maybe the orgy is not quite right because you need to have a little bit of a deeper connection, even if that's get to know somebody for, a couple hours, which, by the way, those types of orgies do exist.
They do.
Not that we've ever been to one.
Well, we are hoping that we are, with everything that we're doing, podcast world and the traveling and everything, that we're going to cultivate a circle of people that we genuinely enjoy being with and like to hang out with and like to play with. And then we can start introducing some of those people into a circle. It's difficult where we live, as we alluded to earlier. We're in a very conservative place. A lot of people don't want to come out of the shadows, but we want to create that circle of friends where that, putting a party together like that would be a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult at this point based on where we are geographically.
Right. Yeah. And something that can take a lot of time, too, to meet the right people.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, we're impatient, as you probably have already guessed.
Yeah, I know. I can relate to that as well.
That's why they're having sex while we talk to them. It was awkward at first, but we're getting past it.
Right. After a while, it seems like just normal.
Yeah. Sorry. Are the two of you out to anybody? Like, do you talk about this with any of your friends or family members, or is it something that you've kept pretty close to between you two?
Well, this is still pretty new for us. We've only been podcasting for 2 months.
Seems like a lot longer, but only 2 months.
We've been swinging for 7 months-ish. So, I mean, no, we're not really. not really out to anyone, but we're also not really afraid of anyone finding out. I mean, our faces are all over social media.
Yeah.
We have a Cassidy page with our faces on them. We know it's going to happen. I think both personally and professionally, we're both at a point in our lives where if it happens, it happens. We don't want to live in the shadows anymore. And so eventually we'll tell kind of everyone. And we haven't decided yet if that's going to be, like, especially with my family who I'm very close with, do I tell them now? Right. Or do I let them find out on their own and come to me, right. Which seems kind of shitty. So at some point, we're probably going to have to have that conversation.
As things progress, as this gets, as the podcast and the whole, the whole lifestyle interest grows, we're probably going to have to tell people. Brenna's family, particularly, they're very close, and they live relatively close to us in another town. So that's something we're going to have to contend with. Professionally, both Brenna and myself work for large companies in our area, pretty high profile, and that I don't know what that really would look like, but frankly, we don't care at this point. Professionally, more than anything, the family is more important to us.
Right.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So one thing we like to bring up, if you guys are all right with it, is talking about how you protect yourselves and protect each other from a sexual health standpoint, and maybe what steps you guys take. And
good job. That was my question that I forgot.
Nicely done.
That'll be easy to edit. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, just leave it in. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, so.
Yeah, editing's overrated.
Yeah, guess which one of us edits.
Hey! I know how to edit too.
So I guess, what do you guys do to help protect each other and protect yourselves?
Well, first of all, condoms are an absolute must when we play with others. That's a non-negotiable kind of no matter what.
It really is our only non-negotiable, but it is non-negotiable.
Yeah, and we have very open conversations with our, partners about, are they being tested and are they clean? And we obviously make sure that we are tested and we are clean and we're presenting that information to our partners. I had an encounter last night where I asked him as soon as we got into the bedroom, which was way too late. And I realized, right. Crap, this conversation should have happened days ago.
Right. Or at least an hour ago.
Yeah, something before we're, his pants are almost down. Right. But anyway, yeah, I think it's just about that communication piece and making sure that we're putting all of the pieces in place to protect ourselves and having it really be a non-negotiable with all of our partners that we,
it's just
that we play safe.
It's just too easy. It just makes sense. You want to be safe. Everybody should be. It's just an easy thing to do. And that really is for us the only non-negotiable.
Yeah. And I guess that it's awesome to hear that you guys are having those conversations and sounds like most of the time having them fairly early. Have you found that's everyone's pretty receptive to that, or have you gotten pushback from people?
No pushback at all thus far.
No.
Matter of fact, we've had folks be very open with us about it, come to us and people we didn't even play with at an event, at a party, and talk about it. So it seems to be relatively on the table with everyone.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
I'm so glad that is hopefully becoming more and more common.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious to change the subject a little bit. Unless, do you have something else on that subject?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay. You said you started a podcast 2 months ago, and I'm curious what made you want to start the podcast? Just you're chronicling your own story for yourselves, or you're trying to reach a larger audience, or why?
Yeah. So I think, honestly, it started out, we didn't know that it was going to turn into anything.
Not at all.
We kind of sat down one day and were recounting one of our, sexy encounters. And Brian was actually the one that was like, this would make a really good podcast. And I was like, well, it had never even crossed our minds before. And yet, in typical Brian and Brenna fashion, within 3 weeks, we had a podcast going. And I think there's a couple reasons for it. One is because we enjoy talking about this. It's fun for us. It's, we enjoy the swinging lifestyle and we want to, shed some light on it. But I think the other piece of it is we hope in some ways that we will help even if it's a very small portion of help, bring some awareness to non-monogamy. We are frankly tired of it being the default setting and of people assuming that that's what is quote unquote normal in a relationship. And if you don't fall into that, you're somehow a, dirty pervert or something.
Which we are.
Well, we're good dirty perverts though.
Yeah,
but anyway, my point is we truly want to bring positive light to the swinging community. We just recently did an interview on somebody else's podcast that's a relationship based podcast, not a lifestyle podcast. And that was great for us because it was like a chance for us to say some things and clear the air, I guess, about some of the misconceptions about swinging. And that has been the most rewarding part of all of this for us. And it's something that we want to continue to do in other formats besides just the podcast. Yep. So we are working hard on a blog and have some other things in place to really educate about the swinging lifestyle as well, not just talk about fucking people.
Right, which we do a lot.
Oh, that's fun, yeah.
Yeah, it's the fun part. Then we got to actually go and work, and you got to write something, and you got to have a podcast. But yeah, that's the good part.
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it. So we appreciate you guys sacrificing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, absolutely. No, listen, we're here. We're take one for the team, no problem.
So when I'm coming back to the conversations you guys had early on, were there any things that either one of you were thinking about that you wanted to share that you were scared to bring up with the other person, that even though you had been met with 99% or even 100% open arms, that you were like, well, but if this might be the one thing that's not kosher?
No, not for me. I mean, the truth is we started out, we jumped in it hip deep. And once we started talking about it, it was, like I said, it was just, everything was just flowing, free flowing. I don't think there was any hesitation in either of us at all to talk about anything. And again, none of it was met with judgment or disdain or even hesitation.
No. Yeah, that wasn't really a thing for us, which I don't think is necessarily talk about the norm.
Right.
And we understand that, but yeah, for us, it really wasn't, there were no concerns there.
No, we've met a couple of couples that talked about it for years before they ever actually pulled the trigger.
One couple, 7 years.
Yeah, they had a conversation, talked about swinging and having, living a non-monogamous relationship and having multiple partners for 7 years before they actually ever put their toes in the water.
Yeah.
So we're just, unfortunately, or fortunately for us, we just don't do that. We want to experience something, we just talk about it, and then we just do it.
No, but we can also understand where people would want to really take their time and make sure that they're comfortable with it, because the flip side of that is we have played with people who were not on the same page. Absolutely. And were not comfortable, and it's not a good experience for anyone involved.
Yeah, if the alternative to you taking 7 years of your time and really thinking it through and really giving it a thought is to not be on the same page and try this, I have to caution anyone who would think that that's a good idea.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
We've experienced it. We've seen it. It was unpleasant, and hopefully never have to see it again.
Yeah. I know you mentioned earlier on that you are both involved in the BDSM community as well. And I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about that, and how was that before you got into swinging or after, and kind of what your involvement there is.
Sure. So I think we both had some level of BDSM experience before being in a relationship with one another, but for me, it was mostly education. I wasn't in a relationship that was encompassed by that before meeting Brian. So it was more just me being the super analytical person that I am, wanting to learn everything about that world and the different types of, play and toys and things available. But this is really the first relationship that I've been able to incorporate a certain level of intimacy along with that.
Yeah, for me, it was just, I had some familiarity with it, some experience with it, but until Brenna and I got together, being able to express myself in that way and talk to your partner about what it is that you needed. And as it turns out, what I needed is the reverse of what she needed, and it just works. And once, again, that information was made open to each other, it just opened the floodgates of all kinds of opportunities.
And so have you guys been able to explore those either through the swinging path, or has it been a slightly separate route to get to the BDSM exploration?
We have mostly reserved that for just the two of us. It's actually similar to the swinging in that it enhances our intimacy with each other. So we've been a little bit guarded about those things and really, saved them for our personal use, so to speak.
Right.
But we did have an interaction with a couple recently that was also kind of BDSM adjacent, and got to experience some of that with another couple too, which was really fun.
Yeah, they were definitely BDSM friendly, not to the level that necessarily we are. Brenna really enjoys impact. This particular couple, the wife of the couple, we should say, was not as interested in the impact as Brenna was, but still interested in some of the aspects.
Open to it, I would say.
For sure, and we had a great time. They were a super couple. But the BDSM pieces, I guess it's one of those things where it's kind of we keep that to ourselves. Like we keep that for our own intimacy, and we enjoy that piece of it, and we enjoy having that kind of exclusivity with each other for the most part.
That makes sense. And you mentioned, though, that in your experience, the BDSM community has not been as open to swinging, and maybe vice versa. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, we were actually going to weekly munches, which is, a BDSM meetup where it gives you the opportunity to share ideas and, educate each other and those types of things. And we went to a few and they were okay. And then we went to one where everyone kind of went around in a circle and said what they consider themselves to be in the BDSM world. So, I'm a dom, I'm a sub, I'm a switch. And they get to Brian and he says that he's a swinger. And all of a sudden it was like everyone turned to look at him with their eyes giant. And from then on out, we felt this just level of judgment, like people wouldn't look us in the eye. And it was very strange to us because, here are these people who are talking about these very extreme physical things that they're into. And yet, us being into that lifestyle, the swinging lifestyle, it was almost like we were weirdos. And it was very uncomfortable for us.
Yeah, but what's interesting is right after that, after I announced that to the room of 30 people, we were contacted the following day on the BDSM website where we have a profile. We have a separate profile on another site that basically caters to BDSM enthusiasts. And we got contacted by two people in the group individually and privately wanting to meet up with us, which of course we completely disregarded because they were so disingenuous they wouldn't talk to us in the meeting. And then of course we go to the following meeting the following week and they don't even look in our direction. So while they have an air of, kind of like, we don't really want the swinger folks in our group, they're very interested at some level. They just don't want their other BDSM friends to know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know it sounds kind of harsh, but like, good on you guys for kind of sticking to your guns. Like, if they're not willing to stand up for what they actually want and what they believe in and stick by your side, like, I don't know. I feel like, on one hand, right, maybe the right thing to do would have been to send them a message and say, hey, that's really flattering, but why didn't you guys stand up for us? And why didn't you welcome us in? But I don't know. It's a tough one, right?
Yeah.
Well, we just stopped going to those meetings. We're no longer part of that group for that reason. It's just not that we didn't enjoy parts of it, but it obviously isn't for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's hard, right? That sucks that you can go to a place where people are sort of living on the fringes of what's acceptable, and if you aren't part of their fringe, you're doing it wrong, and that sucks that they can't.
Yeah, I'm sorry that was your experience.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
And I also want to say too, I have to imagine that that's not a something that happens in every single munch across the country, across the world, and that hopefully there are communities out there that are more accepting, and I have to imagine they exist because.
Yeah, and it comes back to us being in a conservative area for sure. I think if we were in a metropolitan area, it would be a very different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a small community, and oddly enough, the the BDSM community in our community is rather large, but clearly not fully accepting of us dirty swinger folks. So,
Well, if you'd shower once in a while.
yeah, I'm telling you. I mean, I try to prepare myself and look presentable, but they just weren't.
Yeah, so, I mean, you guys, by all counts, are annoyingly compatible. Have there been any things...
Wow.
Have you seen any changes, any benefits other that opening this up after the first 3 months have brought to you, or is it just we were awesome before and we're still just as awesome now?
I think it's created more of a need for, we had good communication before, but our communication now, we talk about everything. And now, especially, with having more avenues to meet people and to connect with people, it's like we're having to really ensure that our communication is 100% on point.
Right.
So I think that's been a benefit. And then the obvious benefit is the sex. I mean, we, like Brian said, after we have an encounter with someone else, it's like crazy for days. So I would say that's a benefit, right?
For sure. Also, the openness and the trustworthiness in this and the communicativeness in this just lends itself to our relationship being enhanced in every way. We're just closer. It just brings us closer. Not to mention the podcast, right? I mean, it's a partnership. I certainly couldn't do it without Brenna, for sure, because I don't have the technical savvy that she's got. And I built the studio we're sitting in. So in 2 months, we went from no podcast to basically renovating another bedroom in our house into a studio, which is where we're sitting right now. So, without each other, I don't think this just wouldn't work, and it wouldn't be the same,
Yeah.
And it definitely has brought us closer, no question.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. How about something that has been a funny blooper or something that's been amusing that's happened to you? I mean, two people having sex is awkward enough, and when you get more than that, it can be really awkward.
No, they're fucking perfect. It's not going to happen.
No. We've had some. You want to tell them what?
No, you go.
So I'll tell you about our first experience with a couple, and they're great people. They're just such sweet people. So of course, at this particular time, we are together. The four of us are in our bedroom, mine and Brenda's bedroom. So we're all on the same bed. And this is a great couple. They're also an age gap couple. So very, very, very cool. Very sexy people. I am having sex with the wife of this couple. Brenna and the husband are next to us. And we have a platform bed. So the bed sits on a platform, and the platform is about 8 inches off the floor. So the bed, is about 10 or 12 inches off the floor. And as we're having sex, she's moving further toward the edge of the bed, and her head is about to hit the platform. So while Brenna is watching us and having sex with the husband, she reaches over, grabs a pillow, and puts it under the wife's head.
And that's just common courtesy.
It was
Right?
It was really just like it just lent itself to the whole scene. It was amazing that she did that. And of course everyone's very cordial, saying, "Oh, thank you so much." Meanwhile, she's next to me having sex with her husband. I'm having sex with her, and it was just a good laugh. It was great. But it could have been a blooper because her head would have bounced off that mahogany platform pretty hard.
Well, then you saved her for the night. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And that really was when I knew it was okay for me to be having sex with another woman. Because that was the first time Brenna had seen me have sex with another woman, and that really confirmed for me that it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to know.
Yeah, that's a great story.
For sure.
And a good reason to keep a few extra pillows around.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a lot of pillows.
Well, we've had a blast talking. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you guys need to shout out into the universe that we could provide a little megaphone for?
No.
Really, for us, it's just a matter of letting people know that those of us who are in this lifestyle are very normal people. We get looked at, I guess, by some folks as the outcast, but I think, as the people in our community the couples in our community are far more loving and trusting and committed couples than most vanilla couples I've ever met. And if you have the opportunity out there and to meet a couple who's a swinging couple, you certainly should take the opportunity to have a conversation with them and just listen.
Just be open. I wish everyone would just have a little bit more openness.
Yeah, I think we could teach vanilla folks how to communicate a whole lot better. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
I wish me now could have had a conversation with me 20 years ago. Could have saved me a lot of trouble.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, are there any resources that you guys want to mention? Maybe podcasts that you're hosts of or otherwise?
Anything you want to plug?
Yes, there is. We have a podcast, Front Porch Swingers. We typically talk about dirty, naughty stories.
We do.
And don't do a lot of the educational pieces. However, we do, like I said, have a blog at frontporchswingers.com. And we're really going to beef that up with some really, we hope anyway, rich content on education around the lifestyle too, because both are important to us. We want to entertain people and we want people to, think that it's sexy, our podcast.
For sure.
But that's not the whole reason that we're doing this either. So both of those.
Yeah, we'll be moving into the educational piece at some point, but the podcast is really for entertainment, just kind of, reliving our experiences and really having fun. We leave the education to the smart folks like you. We're not there yet.
Oh,
we're not educational or entertaining.
We let our guests do that.
Yeah.
We disagree. You guys are great.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it. So thank you. Well, then maybe in the spirit of ending on a note where you're complimenting us, we'll say goodnight and we will keep in touch and look forward to seeing some of that educational material come out. And we will also link for anyone who wants to find you guys to your Twitter pages, and you're on Cassidy as well. And
your website.
Yeah, so we'll put all that stuff in the show notes, and we'll make sure people can find you.
That's great. We appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for the time. We really enjoyed it.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Thank you.
You guys have a wonderful night, and we will talk soon.
Thank you. You too.
I feel like we should have recorded that on the front porch of somebody's house, or even a porch at all. It didn't have to be the front.
Yeah, that would have been fun to do, but no.
I think you're just agreeing with me to be kind. I'm not.
You're trying to be creative. I get it. Anyway.
Thank you to Brian and Brenna for coming on, sharing their story, and for having us on their show. Again, keep an eye out, or your ears, whatever you choose.
For in a couple weeks. That'll be coming out.
We'll let you know. One last thing, as we've mentioned last week, our newest of the new resources. Again, this one is a totally free, doesn't do anything for us other than helps you get better condoms. So if by any chance we ever have sex with you, you're wearing the right size condom.
Wow, good plug there.
Right. Well, I'm just saying we aren't financially tied to this.
No.
We just love the idea and love the resource. Go, Emma, tell them what it is.
So this is a company the brand is My One Condoms, and they have over 60 sizes of condoms. And you go online and you can download a little kit, measure yourself, and order a specific size.
She means penis. You can measure your penis.
I thought that was implied. Anyway, if you want 10% off, go and use the link on our website and nope, I'm wrong. If you want 10% off, go and use the offer code EMMA.
At checkout.
Yep.
And the links to these will be in the show notes as always. So go do that. Go have an awesome week. We will see you in 1 week.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, wait, who's coming up next week?
Oh, Kevin Patterson,
author, blogger, and speaker.
All around awesome person.
All around badass. So he's going to come on, drop some knowledge bombs, and we will see you in a week with Kevin. Let's do it.
Bye, everyone, again.